My name is David Kelly. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here today. Any meeting worth having is worth having in half an hour or less. So let's get to business here quickly. There's 9 groups here today representing consumers who've been involved in educating the public in Senate Bill 271. I'm the Adams County Prosecutor and President of an advocacy coalition of seniors and rural residents called the Citizens to Protect Ohio Consumer Freedom. We have other groups here today. We have representatives from the AARP Ohio, the Ohio Poverty Law Center, communications workers of American District Number 4, United Seniors of Athens County, the Center for Rural Strategies, the Edgemont Neighborhood Coalition of Dayton. There's 2 other organizations who have been involved on this issue but who aren't represented here today, and that's the Legal Aid Society of Southwest Ohio and Pro Seniors. Each person will speak briefly, and then we'll take questions. I want to speak first about some poll results from a recent statewide public policy poll conducted by Fallon Research. There were several questions about this issue included in their poll. There's a full summary in your press packet. And I'm going to summarize it quickly. There were 4 integral questions. First one was, do you support or oppose the law? The survey found that 74.4% totally opposed Senate Bill 271. The poll found that the question says, does the bill concern you that it would endanger lives? 66.4% of those in the survey responded with very concerned. And then there was a question that landlines work during the summer storms proves that they're a vital tool. 86.3% found that to be true. And then finally, the question, are you more or less likely to vote for a legislator that supports Senate Bill 271? And 54.4% said less likely to vote for them. And just to summarize, what the poll shows is that the Ohio Senate acted hastily in passing this bill. That as Ohioans get more information and get better educated about the bill, that they overwhelmingly oppose it. It's so dramatic, in fact, that it could impact legislators at the ballot box. And what I'd like to do next is introduce the next person to speak with some comments on the impact of Senate Bill 271, and it would be Bill Sundemeyer from the AARP, Ohio.
My comments are going to be very brief. We have a couple things going. One, we're in the process, as we have always done with the elections, in terms of asking legislators their position on a variety of issues. One of those issues is the issue of Senate Bill 271, how they feel about it. We will give them an opportunity, both any incumbent who's running as well as where there are races and there are 2 candidates, we'll give both candidates the opportunity to answer the question of how they feel, and we will publish that information for our members. The other thing we're looking at, and that we are very close to putting into action, is a second analysis on the part of our members. We're going to be looking heavily at members who are older. We consider you're 50, you're young. As you get older, we'll then be looking at that group, and also the lower socioeconomic groups who will have more difficulty in affording this issue if it goes through. So we're trying to gather factual information, attitudinal information on the part of candidates, attitudinal information with respect to our members, so that we truly reflect where they are and how they feel about this legislation.
My name is Mike Smalls. I'm an attorney with the Ohio Poverty Law Center in Columbus. I also represent the Appalachian Peace and Justice Network. which is a coalition of largely low-income residents and consumers in southeastern Ohio and Appalachian Ohio. And I'm going to highlight one point. We're here, of course, to protest against Senate Bill 271. We're also here to protest against the failure of the House Select Committee to move ahead with its hearings and with its study of the impact of the previous telephone deregulation bill, House Bill 262. That law, of course, mandated the legislature to go ahead and study what was the impact of that bill. The idea being that the legislature wouldn't move any further towards radical deregulation and removal of consumer protections until it conducted that study and issued its report. Of course, that hasn't happened. There was supposed to be a hearing today, the first hearing of the so-called Select Committee, but that was canceled, so nothing is happening. The reason why that's significant, one reason, is that the definition of a so-called competitive test, which is the trigger that would allow the incumbent phone companies here in Ohio to get rid of their basic landline phone service, is exactly the same definition that was in the prior law in House Bill 262. And presumably one of the charges of the Select Committee would be to look at how effective, how meaningful that definition of competition was. And the only difference is that now the consequences of that trigger are far more severe. Under House Bill 262, if the so-called competitive test was met, then that meant the phone companies could raise their rates each year by the amount of $1.25 a year. But now it means if that trigger is met, they can simply get rid of their basic landline phone service, their traditional landline phone service entirely. Now, why are we concerned about that quote-unquote competitive test? The reason is threefold, or at least twofold. One, it simply says that if there are two alternative providers, and it doesn't define who alternative providers might be, but if there are two alternative providers of phone service in a telephone exchange, then the companies may withdraw basic local phone service from the entire exchange. The problem, of course, is that the bill, the legislation, doesn't say that there have to be competitive providers, alternative providers, everywhere in the exchange. So there could be parts of the exchange where there are alternative providers and other areas in that exchange where there are no alternative providers. The second problem is that the bill does not require that the alternative providers provide affordable service. So it could be service that's twice as expensive, 3 times as expensive as basic landline phone service is now, but that would meet the competitive test. And then thirdly, the service need not be comparable. Basic local phone service is unlimited flat rate service for a basic rate, for a low rate. And under the bill, alternative providers do not have to offer unlimited flat rate service. They may limit their service to 200 minutes a month or whatever. And you may wonder why that's a problem. Well, it's a problem that we've encountered in our own experience at Legal Aid when we've talked to attorneys who have, to clients who have cell phones, either interviewing the clients or for trial preparation, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the conference, in the middle of our discussion with our client, the conversation goes dead. And we get some kind of message that service is not available or no longer available. And so it's critical that people have access to flat rate service. And this bill would deny people that opportunity, unless they're willing to pay big bucks to get unlimited cell phone service or VoIP service. So that is one of the critical reasons, one of the main reasons why we oppose Senate Bill 271.